Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. First order of business is to do the oath for the re-elected board member. Mary Hartswick.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of the Millbrook Central School District according to the best of my ability.
Our new board member, Eva.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of the Millbrook Central School District according to the best of my ability.
And Jennifer, when you come back, we'll do your oath, okay?
Should she just take the oath now and just sign it when she?
No, she has 30 days, so I'd
Okay.
rather have her just do it in person. I can validate it. So next is the nomination for board president. Do I have a nomination for president?
Nominate her.
I second. Okay, so I'm going to go around the room and individually take your vote. I'll do you last, Carrie, but Howard,
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Aye. Dina?
Aye.
And Jen?
Aye.
I turn the meeting over to the board president.
Okay. Next, we'll do the election of the vice president. Do you have a nominations?
I hereby nominate Chris R. Probably didn't say that. A second.
Want to go around again?
Perry?
Yes.
Howard?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Dina?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
We're in.
Yeah. He's so surprised he waited for the vote. Yeah, one thing before we go we really need to get new badges for the board all the way around. All right. So under C1 is really, hopefully you had a chance to look over the committees, but that's the list of committees that within the district that we, some of them we have to do, some of them we don't, they're just extras, but this was put on here to explain those. So what we need to do is go through and get board member participation in these committees. So we'll start with Board Facilities Committee. Right now that's Jen, David, and Chris. Chris R. Anybody want out? Anybody want in? Can't have more than 3. That's the only thing. Anybody? Okay, so we'll leave it as is. Food Services. We have Chris and Jen. Out, in.
I'm good.
Okay. Board Policy Committee, or as we like to call it, full employment. David, Laura, and Cheryl are the representatives on that committee now. Out, in. Good. Okay. Audit Committee is me as the chair, Chris and Jen. In, out.
I'm good.
Good. Okay, Dutchess County School Board Association is me. I'm cool to do it. I actually enjoy it. Although once in a while I forget it, but I do enjoy it. But this is one of these things where we're still remote. Anybody from the board can tie in. Any of the administrators really can tie in. Good place to see what other districts are doing, but unless somebody else wants to be the representative, I'll take care of that. Good.
Is there only one board member for that one?
No, we can put, actually, we used to have, we always had like a primary and a backup, but, and again, you can come at any time.
Okay, I would
But-
be interested in that.
Okay, cool. Can you update that, Cheryl? Legislative liaison. Is Howard? You still good with that?
I'm good unless somebody else wants it.
I don't want to push you out, but if I can be added maybe to it, I was interested in that.
Sure.
as well.
Yeah, the only restriction we have on really on any of these is that we can't have more than 3,
Okay,
because there might, then you end up with 4 people at a meeting and then it's official. So yeah, that would be great. NISBA annual voting delegate, this is one where we can have a backup, but there's only one vote. Howard, you were the person?
I'd like to step down to the alternate unless somebody wants both of the slots. Somebody else needs to be broken in to the process.
So this, if you remember right, once a year, we get a list of, hey, these are all the areas of interest. These were all the subjects. This is what NISBA thinks we should push on from as a New York State. But every district gets a vote, and this person is the person that actually meets with us and then figures out what Millbrook's point of view is, and then votes that, usually at NISBA, right, at the conference.
Normally at the conference, although they've been doing it by Zoom recently. I don't know if it's going to be kept by Zoom because it seems to move quicker, or it's going to be in person this year. But,
Okay. Anybody want to do that?
I think the alternate one, we can always flip flop.
yeah, okay. If that's- Then, all right, you can list me and be alternate at this point.
PTO liaison is Jen right now.
I'll stay with that if that's okay, unless someone else wants to, that's fine.
I think this is only a one per, I mean, I guess, again, you're welcome to go to any of those meetings.
I'm still on the board for the PTO, so I would be there.
Don't know if we can do that.
Okay.
At least when I joined the board, I was on the MEF and I was told I had to leave the MEF to be on the school board.
No, because
I'm
Chris is
still
still on
on
the
the
app,
board.
technically,
I'm
so am
still
I.
on it. I just can't.
Yeah, I checked that before.
Maybe I made that up just so I.
I thought the same thing.
I checked it.
Oh, all right. I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't have two representatives.
Or did you want to step down, Jim?
Yeah, if Dina wants to do it, that's totally fine with me.
Now you did it. All right.
You've got a
very
better
good.
handle on it probably, so.
District Data Committee. We need, it's me, Chris LaBelle, and David right now. I'm okay staying with that, but I'm also okay if somebody else wants to do it. Everybody okay on?
I'm good. Steve.
Okay. Leadership team is Paul, so we should probably replace him. Is there anybody interested in becoming a part of that district leadership team?
Can you give me context on it?
Yeah, it's. Is that not in here, Cheryl?
In the committee information?
Yeah,
It might be listed as a different name. I can get back to you on that, Chris, if you want me to, but it could be listed under a different name.
I just thought for the new board member,
Yeah.
new board members.
well, why don't we leave that one open, because I don't see it in there. I could have swore I did see it in there, but this is the professional development team. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we need to figure that one out. And actually figure it out if we even need it. District Safety Committee is Chris and Paul. We definitely need a second person on
I'd
that.
like to.
I,
no, you can
Oh, you
do
could
it,
do
Jim.
three.
well, I would like to.
All right.
I don't know.
I mean, we can put three on there.
No, I'll back.
Okay.
So who's doing it, Chris and Chris? Is that-
Chris and Chris, Chris squared. All right.
Okay.
District Technology Committee is me and Chris. I'm still good with that, if unless somebody else wants to be a part of it. How about you, Chris?
I'm okay staying either or.
Okay. Wellness Committee is Chris and Chris. Yeah, it's good to continue on with that.
Want to be on it?
Yeah,
I'm okay.
it's a big committee. Does anybody else want to join it? Join the Chrissy?
Yeah, I'm giving you that.
I have 3. Is that okay to do a 4?
Oh, no, there's only 3.
No, I
No,
already
no,
signed up for
You can-
3.
Oh, yeah, you can do them all. No, that's
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to work with that.
cool. All right.
We need to add on there. There's MEF liaison and then there's climate and culture committee.
Oh, right. Okay.
We can-
Yeah.
And maybe if you just update the agenda, to do those. And yeah.
So MEF, is that you, Chris?
That's,
The climate?
does anybody else want to join me on climate and culture?
You're the only one on it. Only
I
board member?
am.
I do, I just,
You don't have
there's
to.
not many boxes that are unchecked on here.
I know.
Can I change from wellness to culture if wellness has two already and that way culture can have two?
Yeah. These are, I hope you understand, these are very flexible. It's really so that the board has a set of ears, eyes, and a little mouth on these committees. Because that's where you find out what's really going on. So don't get too hung up on whether there's 2 or 3. That only, like I said, the only real restriction is we don't put a quorum together. All right, so we good? All right, moving to the consent agenda. It's a long one. So does anyone, before I, call for motion, does anyone have anything they want pulled?
This is just from section
I
E.
should probably explain that. So Dina, the consent agenda is basically when we vote on that, we're voting yes or no for everything in that list. Usually what we do is before the motion, if someone has, hey, letter D or D, whatever it is, number 3, I'd like that pulled to a separate motion so that we can discuss it in detail. So first we ask, does anybody have anything they want pulled? Then we ask for a motion to approve. Then we have discussion on, like general discussion of the items in here. And then we vote. So
Is this one vote for both sections, all of section A and F?
All of them.
Okay. I just had one question on section F, number 20.
do you want to pull it?
No,
and-
just a question for the
Okay.
chemical hygiene officer. It's John Mullins. Does he have like chemical training and he knows? I just wondered if a chemistry teacher would be more.
Different districts do it different ways. John manages all of our cleaning chemical inventories, which tends to take up a lot of that overall
Okay.
inventory.
So it overlaps.
So I've worked in districts where they've had an instructional person with a science background do it, or, someone with more of a chemical hygiene background.
So if he's dealing with something in one of the chemistry labs, he would get some help.
Correct. It's really just making sure that we have the SDS sheets for everything and that we're disposing of things properly.
And our
Okay.
safety consultant from BOCES, regional safety,
Mhm.
whenever they come, they send the SDS forms as well.
But I took the test just for a goof one year and it's 95% cleaning.
Okay.
Those kind of chemicals.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so
I'm sorry, I did have a question as well.
you want
No.
it pulled so that we make a separate motion on it, or?
Not necessarily, maybe if I can ask my question first and kind of point to the right direction. I don't know which number it is, but for the health director, Dr. Barry Goodman. So my question is, are there alternatives to who's requesting to be appointed? I was just looking into the various appointments and he is with New Vance. And he's been in the field for 30 to 40 years. My concern was just for New Vance during the pandemic, they had closed their pediatric wing. And so Westchester Medical Center's local hospital here, they put in a pediatric wing. So I just wanted to know if,
Pull it for
how this
discussion.
person
Okay.
comes in.
Yeah, we'll take, which number is it?
I'm
Tina?
sorry, I'm gonna look.
We'll find it. I thought
It's
that was
a-
it.
it's a-
We don't
It's
choose
a
it.
sign. F3, is it the medical director?
Yes.
Yeah, F3.
Where is it?
It's under
F3.
section F, which is that part of the
Oh,
consent.
okay,
Who
Yes.
assigns it? Oh, it's-
Yeah.
yeah, all right, so anything else we want taken off that?
Oh
off there?
dear, now that I realize that F is,
Wait, can you go back? What is the section that you're looking at, Dina? Was
F3.
F3.
Thank you.
So I didn't realize, so F is also part of the consent agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically anything with an asterisk.
I'm sorry, and F2 then as well.
I did have a question, so I don't know if it needs to become discussion or not, for the number 11, so F11 and F13. The Title IX, 2, 6, 7, and 9 investigators, that would be F11. And then the Dignity Act coordinators, F13. Do you want me to ask my
Okay.
question?
No, let's just pull them,
No? Pull them, okay.
and do them separately.
Okay.
All right. Anything else we want pulled before we, before I ask for a motion?
I just want to make sure, because I have to pull them off of this consent, otherwise
Yes.
it's going to show that it passed.
Yes,
So F13,
F13 and F11,
F11,
and F2 and F3.
okay.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the 4 removals? So do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any against? Okay, so let's start with. Okay, we'll start with what was number 2, the school/position. Motion to appoint New Balance Health as school physician for 2022-23 school year. Do I have a motion to approve? We're not going to, you have to approve it and second it, and then we can talk about it. So, yeah, let me just sneak this one. We have a motion, go to a second.
Who did the motion?
Chris.
Just came out of my mouth.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so my question was how this person gets appointed or gets elected to be appointed, if there's anyone else that also wanted to be appointed or would qualify, if there's anyone else who could fill that position, not that I am familiar with Mr. Goldman at all or anything like that, but just with, if there's anybody maybe new to the field or from a different facility.
The procedure, I guess, is this an advertised? How does procedure work for this position?
No, so,
Well, we have been working closely with Health Quest all along, and then they changed to New Balance. And so Dr. Soha was our past physician. And I believe, I'm not sure if he retired or moved on. And so Dr. Goldman was assigned to us. So we can look into it further if that's what the board desires.
well, is there, without names, without, specifics, are there problems or a problem? Are there issues with that person?
One move on.
Right, so just for, I'm thinking, Westchester Medical Center, and I'm sorry, the local regional office in Poughkeepsie escapes me. They took on opening a small wing for pediatrics when New Vance closed it. And then just maybe having somebody who has, 34 years of great experience, but maybe there's someone newer in the field who might, we can also look at their accolades and what they have done. I didn't know if there was anyone else available or if it's just this person.
If anyone else?
well, I was gonna just say that we'll contact our legal department about it, because I don't think just anybody can be a school physician. It's not just doing, looking at the kids, this also involves employees. And so there's a lot involved in that, and not everybody wants to be involved in that.
Okay.
So there's more to it than that. On the other side of that, though, there is an immediate impact for us if they're not assigned right now as our physician, school physician, Nuvance as our school physician, because they fill scripts for us over the summertime for certain things that are needed for special education department. So we have to have someone effective immediately. And if there's a question about, that could be a big impact to us right now.
Well, but can we look at the procedure itself? I mean, right now, it's probably, business as usual.
Yeah, I'd recommend that we continue, we appoint Nuvance right now. And then we have to look at, we have a year to see if it's an RFP, which is going out for a bid. And then interested parties submit bids. Or it's a different way, different process of the appointment and qualifications. But it gives us a year to look at it and look at Nuvance as well, and see what if they're cutting edge or not.
So one of the things we need to put on our, whatever we're calling that list, is when do we have to start looking, like put this out there? I mean, there's a lot of it. We went through it with accounting, we went through it with a number of different areas where we're putting them out for bid. I mean, we don't put them out for bid every year, but we want to make sure that people are taking it seriously. So if we need at the very, like the highest level, we need to know what the calendar looks like if we wanted to make a decision next year.
Right.
So
Okay.
like, let's say it's March, we have to put out an RFP. In April, we need to make a decision. In May, everything's locked up. I mean, I'm just making all that up, but, all right. So if you can get that on our hit list of stuff we need to do.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Tina? Is she okay with that?
Yes.
I can I'll contact legal tomorrow and get an explanation. We can at least have it for the next meeting so that it's clear.
Okay. And is it the same, are we under the same time crunch with the chief medical officer one?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So maybe can we put these two together, or not together, but can we get them so that we know what the calendar is for these next year?
Yep.
Okay. Where'd you go, Chris? Number 11?
It was,
We need to vote on that
We
one.
have to take a vote.
Oh, yeah. So what is the motion? Motion is to approve, actually, we're just approving those two. And then the, all right, so motion to appoint Nuvance Health as school physician. We already made the motion, right?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Any against? Okay. Motion to appoint Barry Goldman of Nuvance Health to serve as district medical director and chief medical officer in conjunction with the district's concussion management policy and school physician services for the 22-23 school year. Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Other than, let's just make sure that this is something that triggers us to do something. All right, so all in favor? Aye. Any against? All right, number 11, Chris, right? Or what
Yeah,
was
is it
number 11?
possible to talk about 13 before 11, or do we have to go in order?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
my question.
Oh, well, actually, I
Or-
guess we
yeah.
have to have a motion. Do we have a motion to appoint the following Dignity Act coordinators for the 22-23 school year at no additional salary? Eric Seid, principal, Stephen Bell, principal, Thomas Lipka, principal, Mike Stero, principal. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought not too long ago, our lawyers had suggested, and then that, I thought we appointed somebody external to do this.
That was for one particular, well, not one, it was several, but it was for a specific incidents. So it's not for all of our DASA.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't use somebody external for just ongoing?
Wouldn't, I mean, other than
Yeah, there's money factor.
yeah,
Just, I mean,
cost.
to rule out any potential partiality or conflict of interest in investigating one's own employees.
Based on cost, it could be based on person, investigators' availability. But
But I mean, we have to have
using-
somebody signed up. I mean, we can't just go, oh, we need one, let's go see if we can find one. So we'd have to have a contractor signed up, which I assume would mean like paying a retainer even if they're not working for us. I would think, I don't know.
Would it make sense to have them assigned to different schools than their own?
That's a good point.
I don't know, just.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Yes.
Are we looking Caroline? Are we looking at me?
I'm looking at this.
Well, I mean, it would be a relief for principals. It was a very, very busy year.
Right.
Just the investigations, the paperwork, the communication takes a lot of, so that would be a great relief for our principals. Outside investigator contracted would be great if we can make it happen. And also part of our proposal with that SEL position was to relieve the principals of that work and have that one person who would be working throughout the district in that capacity.
There's no issues with basically having contractors do this work like all the time.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea what it would cost?
No, so the person that we're using now, I did speak to her about if she was interested or did this. She can't do it on a full-time basis just because she's retired and she has other obligations, but we could look into it and see what that would be. I mean, you can do it.
Is it like it's okay if we put this on hold till we figure it out? Well, not until we figure it out, till the next meeting.
My suggestion would be that we go ahead and appoint them because something could still happen even though we're in the summer.
We have summer scholars.
We have employees here, but we can always either amend or we can add another motion if we decide to bring an outside person in too. So you can do
I'm
that.
assuming an outside person can also be a second review versus first and doing all the paperwork and doing everything else. That would probably be a lot cheaper.
I'm not sure really. They may not
They wouldn't
want to
take on
do
one.
that.
I
Yeah.
would think they'd have to, whether
Or
they,
with their own.
I mean, they're still gonna have to be there.
Or you
Code
could
of
pull this and subject to discussion with legal later on.
Problem is, who does it
In the meantime.
tomorrow morning
Right.
if there's an issue?
And right now, as for our code of conduct, the 5300, it designates it says principals. So we would have to go back and look at
Can we
policy.
amend this to basically run through the beginning of the school year and then vote again in the beginning of the school year? Does it have to be? At least it covers us for the summer.
Yeah, but we could amend it to run till September 1.
You just say throughs
And
and
then we
then
can
we'll
just-
revisit.
Look into it.
Yeah, but we need somebody to,
Yep.
you know, I'm assuming there's a list of these folks that we could, you know, ask of whether there's an interest or an ability to do this. All right, so what would this be amended to? Motion to appoint the following blah, blah, blah for the school year or for the period of July 1st, 2022 to September 1st, 2022. at no additional salary. Make sure we get that part. Any, is that okay? All right, do I have a motion as modified? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Yeah, let's, would you guys be okay with, participating in that review and search?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any against? And then, so you want to go back to 11? Do you want to modify that one the same way?
Do we need to?
Oh, yeah. Do we have a motion to appoint the following Title II, Title VI, Title VII, and 9 investigators for the 22-23 school year at no additional salary? Eric, Steve, Tom, and Michael. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So,
It was really the same question,
so if we modified it, I mean,
but
Can
I know
somebody
these
do-
aren't as common.
could somebody do both? I mean,
Yeah,
could
so
we
what-
get,
What typically happens is with an
That's what's
incident,
happening right now.
okay,
yeah,
Mhm.
all right,
they look at it and it looks like it would be this.
fine,
Sometimes
yeah,
they'll go
They
hand in
measure it
hand.
against.
Yeah.
all right. So, motion to appoint the following Title II, Title VI, Title VII, Title 9 investigators for the period of July 1st, 2022 through September 1st, 2022, and no additional salary. Eric, Stephen, Thomas, and Michael. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. Whole business. Approve agreement, educational elements. So this is to continue the work that started early last year, I guess, about setting policy for the board, for the district, getting together,
Setting policies.
well, not policy, that's the wrong term, setting goals, I should say, board goals, district goals, how we're gonna get there, sort of the pitch on Millbrook. There's a request to finish this, maybe Carolyn or Laura, can you guys just talk a little bit about what needs to be finished?
Yeah, so we've been working closely with Education Elements. Gabby is a consultant that we work with directly. And there are 4 phases to this strategic planning. And we've completed phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 and 2 really involved the project team, which was administration and board members, and then the steering committee, which included administration, teachers, other staff members, and board members, and really taking a close look at our mission and vision. So we used our own ideas as well as ideas that we captured in a video asking the community, how do you see Millbrook Central School District over the next 5 years? What would you like to see? As well as student focus groups and some other data points such as the technology equity survey to inform our mission and vision. And so we have a pretty strong draft, if not finalized, of a mission and vision. And then we grew them out to include values such as integrity and success, growth, community, and acceptance. And then the next layer is growing out into pillars. Right now we have draft 4 pillars, which could be curricular, communication, connectedness, and citizenship. And then we would have the steering committee as well as community engagement to help us build them out with aligned initiatives. And those would be the initiatives that we would focus on for the next 3 to 5 years. So the next phases 3 and 4 are really building out those pillars with the community and with the project team and steering committee. And then developing metrics for monitoring our progress. So we can put all of these in place, but how do we know it's working? So making sure that we create these tools that we're following along the way. And then developing the community presentation. And then phase 4 is really the launch and monitor. We'll be reviewing the initiatives and the metrics and making the final adjustments. And then the steering team will develop a presentation for the board. And then we'll work with education elements in the marketing team. That's when we're going to start branding. Really looking at how do we want folks to see us, to how do we want to represent ourselves in the signage that we use, in the words that we use. So their marketing team is stellar in their work, and we're looking forward to really getting down to some design. Phase 2, we still need to plan and schedule community engagement sessions because we still want feedback from the community about our mission, the vision, the values, and the pillars. So we wanted to launch in September, but summer's not everybody's here to give their feedback. We also want to align it. We want to work on the strategic plan and align it with our technology, our capital project plan. So we've made great strides. I think we're in a good place. Phase 3 and 4 are really where we're going to see the fruits of our labor, and then a launching.
And is any of this, oh, actually, we should go do the motion then. and discuss it.
Can I make a recommendation on this though? Just like we've done in past years. The summer's tough to get community involvement. It's tough to get, we don't have all staff back. Is there a way to shift this agreement from like 9:10 to 1:30? Because it's a short agreement. So by the time pretty much this, school comes back, we're gonna be at the tail end of it.
This goes through when? November 30th?
Yeah, so I was just thinking 9:10 through 1:30 instead of 7:10 through 11:30.
Yeah, I think they're.
I'm seeing July.
We had that
1st,
conversation
22
and then we would push
June
it.
30th, 23.
Oh,
In the motion, I'm not sure.
In the
bottom
actual
of the
attachment.
agreement says
I think that's
July.
what, well, this says July through next June. July through basically July 1 to July 1.
What is that?
July through November 30th.
What is the
So
date?
maybe
Whatever the
that's
date
what
is.
there's two different.
And
So you're saying it's September 1?
I would, that's what I'd recommend, is September 1 through whatever that would run its course through. Even if it's September 10th to June 3rd, to January 30th.
when that is, when to let the parents get back, or not parents, the students get back to school, let the parents get into it a little bit and then start there.
And I think
And
we
how
will
much is
meet,
it?
we will meet during the summer once as the subcommittee, the project team. But I think they'll include it, even if it went from 7 to 1:31, 23.
Right.
I think they would be okay with that, but we'll reach out to them just to confirm.
So how much are we talking, and is any of it granted?
It's all granted and it is.
It's 52,500,
52,500.
right, and that's what it says, July through November, so just, that's a big difference if it's through next June, so. check that.
So anyway, that money isn't coming out of our budget.
Right.
Right.
All right, so before we go too much more into it, be it resolved. Board of Education President is hereby authorized to execute an agreement and educate with education elements setting forth the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting effective July 1. We're going to modify these dates. What would we like these to be?
September.
Say September, I don't know what second Monday of September is,
I think school starts on the 7th.
The 5th is the first Monday, the 1st is the Thursday.
It's the 12th.
12, okay. So effective, well, why does this one say a full year on it, but the things below are not full year?
Because I put the language in for the agreement, not knowing that it was only a half a year agreement that you guys were doing.
Right. Should we just, you guys mind tabling this and then letting them fix the dates with education elements, but also in here. Is that okay? All right. You guys okay with that?
I don't know if she knows she's been appointed
Oh,
pre-K
so,
because she's been around in the consent approval items.
oh,
So I don't know if you want to go from her. Pre-K.
it's come to my attention that someone was appointed in the consent agenda and has joined our team at Millbrook. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Cleveland. I got the previous position coming, so wanted to come to the board meeting so I could meet all of you. And I'm really excited to join your school district and yeah.
Very cool. Welcome to the district,
Welcome.
and apologize for not actually acknowledging it. That would have been nice. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna push that out until we get everything straightened out
Sure.
in the next board meeting. Next is a presentation from the architects and engineers.
Okay, that's gonna be me and the gentleman over there. I'm gonna set up the slide deck and I'll be right over.
Yes, I think so.
It might be a little loud. Yeah, like it's at one speed, really loud, or
Yes, but I will try to talk over it if that's helpful.
for a few minutes and then.
Or if we should
Sure.
push it out the door, out of the door, like old schooler area, but the noise is
So
outside.
that's all right. I mean, just remove the air. We'll do something.
And go just a bit. Next.
I know.
Perfect.
I got a jump start.
Loud. Can you fix? You guys-
Can you fix this?
Yeah, put it in the capital project.
You guys know that? I stand over here and talk because I like, I don't want to leave you guys stand here with a sit down comfy. So I'll introduce BBS individuals in a minute, but just wanted to start today by giving a quick background on how we got to this point. We've got some new faces in the room, and it's good for even the public watching at home to understand this is a lengthy multi-year process, and we want to just give everybody up to speed on where we've been. So in August 2021, the Board of Education asked us, what would it entail to get a major capital project out to vote and completed for the district? For those that may or may not remember, the last major capital project that our district did was in 2006 when we completed the build of the Millbrook High School building. So there's been some minor projects in between, but that's really the last big public referendum that we did. So we presented a timeline in September. We updated it once again in December. And so we're kind of doing a 6-month update at this point again to just explain where we are in the process. We started with an RFP for architectural engineering services. We wanted to bring in a new firm with fresh eyes to really do a comprehensive assessment on all of our buildings, our systems, our grounds, everything that is a physical thing that we touch, walk into, and use to teach in the district of Millbrook. So the successful firm was BBS Architects and Engineers, and these 3 gentlemen are here tonight to speak to you about what that BCS process looks like. Okay, so again, there is a state mandated building condition survey. It's done every 5 years. With 728 districts in the state of New York, what they were realizing is they were bottlenecking all of the approval queues at the state, right? Every project we do is approved by the State Department of Education. And so every 5 years, every single district was sending projects for approval and was creating this tremendous backlog. So in 2015, the State Department of Education decided to break up the BCS cycle by doing 20% of the districts every year so that everybody gets done every 5 years. But unfortunately for us, where we fell in that process is we got pushed out 9 years. So we did it in 2015. We're not due again for an official building condition survey until 2024. And obviously we don't want to plan a major project with 6-7-year-old information. So we wanted these gentlemen to come in with their firm and their professional experience to give us an off-cycle assessment. And then we'll update that assessment again in 2024 for the official submission. But at least we have real numbers and real eyes on our problems and our issues now today, so we can make informed decisions. So this is the timeline. This is, if you remember the memo that I sent to the board in September and we updated it in December, this is excerpts from that timeline. Again, just to bring everybody up to speed. In December, we issued the RFP for architectural engineering services. January, we conducted interviews. In February, we brought 2 final firms up for the board in public session. They were interviewed, and the board unanimously selected BBS to join us in this endeavor. From March to May, BBS and their team have been crawling through our buildings quite literally in some of our tunnels, going up on the roofs, going in and out of every single classroom and instructional space, surveying our grounds to really get a feel for where we are as a district from a condition standpoint. And we're here today to present a summary of those findings to you. What you're going to see in the next few slides, and I say few, there's like 40. And I don't want these gentlemen to go line by line. We don't have enough time and it's a little warm in here. But we are going to highlight some of the things on this list as we move forward. The reason why I included the entire list is transparency for the board and the community. Because at the end of this conversation, we're going to talk about a subtotal or a gross total of the quantification of what our needs looks like. And I don't want anybody watching this or sitting here to say, how did you come up with that number? We're going to show you how we came up with that number. We may not explain every single nuanced piece to it, but we are going to show them to you and the community, and they are available on board docs for anybody to see. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen here. This is Fred Ziva from BBS, Greg O'Connor, and Brian Manning. So these are the 3 gentlemen that are the core of our BBS project team. I'm going to flip the remote to you guys and let you kind of walk through what the process looked like from your perspective. And just if you could give us highlights, trends, hot spots within those lists. We're going to try to move quickly. I would ask the board, if you have a really important question, certainly interrupt us, but if you're willing to bear with us, let us move through it. We can always circle back and revisit things kind of at a higher level, if that makes sense. So I don't know who wants to drive, but if you guys want to talk about the process and then jump into the list, sure, Greg. Thank you. Thank you.
We're very pleased to be here with you guys in person. We saw you on a Zoom many months ago. And since then, as Mr. Garcia mentioned, we've been here for three full days going through the buildings and analyzing all the buildings. Elliot and John Mullins helped us with that task. We met with all the maintenance staff in all the different buildings. We met with all the principals in all the buildings, and we met with the administrative staff. We're trying to get all the data we can about the condition of the building. So we did that. You're going to see a report, many pages. We're going to try to move quickly. I've been telling these guys move quickly and talk loudly, but we don't have to do that now because they turned the air conditioning off.
Strategic planning.
Strategic. That was strategic. So again, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to turn. Greg is the architect involved in the building condition survey. I'm also an architect, and Fred is the MEP engineer, and Fred also runs the company. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. They're going to go back and forth and hit some highlights. And I told them if we see you nodding off or anything, I'm going to nudge them a bit. Okay.
There's a couple of things just to let you know in background before we get started. So you'll see dollar amounts on here associated with the items. Those dollar amounts are fully loaded, meaning they contain all the contingencies and fees. So there's escalation in there. There's owner soft costs for your bonding, insurance, testing, and things that you have to do. There's design contingencies, construction contingencies, in case we find something when we open a wall up that we didn't expect. And then there's architectural engineering fees. So it's about 30 to 33% fees in there. So the actual construction cost is a little bit less. And we get asked that question a lot. Another thing is that we have prioritized all of the items that we have identified as we walked around the buildings based upon our definition of priorities. And priority 1 is typically health and safety and or code issue, all the way down to priority 5, which would be more of an aesthetic type of an issue. So you'll see that. Now, these are our priorities. This becomes your report as of tonight. And if you guys want to see different priorities on different things, please let us know that, because it is your report, it's your planning report, and we'll work together with you on this. This is going to be a living, breathing document for you over the next 5 years until you do your next round of BCSs. So we'll get into the items. We have identified, along with Elliot, some larger items that we're going to try and get through. They're the ones that are in bold print, but I don't know how well you guys can see that. But we'll go through those quickly. And if you have any questions, again, let us know. Be more than happy to answer.
And look at it, Elliot had mentioned, comes from the BCS report. So it's going to toggle back and forth with architectural and mechanical items. So Fred and I will be sharing it. The first item for the Elm Drive Elementary is the site drainage along the east and south side of the building. Kind of like all your buildings in the district, they're built into hills, so there is water issues. There was some mold issues and indoor air quality. We feel this is kind of helping that along, so we would like to address that, the water in those pipe tunnels. So that first item is, work included into just providing drainage alongside that building. And second to that is the waterproofing associated with that. As we dig it out, we would like to address the wall while we're doing it. It's a couple small items in here, steel columns and doors. But the other big item in priority one is the windows at that building, the 1960, 1964 edition. So that's a full window replacement.
Just the 8-foot high chain link fence,
So that is a full property fence on the entire property.
and where did that come from? Is that like a regulation or?
That was just a district. Item.
I mean, I don't, I'm assuming you guys will understand. Personally, I don't want to see this look like downstate,
Right. Yeah, this is
fence all the way around.
Quoted as a nice.
Okay.
Architectural fence.
And the windows are, I'm assuming these take us to a much more energy efficient window besides
Yeah,
this stuff.
gets rid of your single pane, your original 1960s, like elements code. Get you up to the right R value.
Okay.
And then another big item, phase one, is the asbestos tile, in that building. So that's roughly a third of your building is asbestos tile, and that'll be consistent throughout the album and also. And then continuing on some architectural items, so we have interior doors. A lot of those original doors are starting to delaminate, so we'd like to replace those. There is a chairlift in that building, but there is some issues with it, so that needs to be replaced. The building has a couple levels in it, so ADM accessibility is obviously important.
Next item we've highlighted is repairing piping and non-functional hallway cabinet heaters. There were some issues with some cabinet heaters as a temporary measure. They capped them off, so they're no longer functional. We're just putting money in here to double back and to make those functional again, so that those hallways heat properly. Next item is mechanical fresh air. There's a couple of rooms that got subdivided, speech room and classroom 20. Subdivided due to necessary space concerns that you guys have. So what we need to do is provide mechanical fresh air in those subdivided space. You have unit vent on one side, bringing in mechanical fresh air, baseboard on the other side, not bringing in mechanical fresh air. So that is a code issue, and that's why it's in. Next item is the older undersized condensate receiver. That's down in the boiler room. All the condensate comes back. That unit is probably 30 years old or so. You've definitely gotten your money's worth out of it. It is rotting out at this point, so it is something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. Next item is unit vent fans and exhaust fans. What we discovered as we walked around the buildings, you have a number of controls issues here, automatic temperature controls issues, and a number of the fans have been shut off. Sometimes they might get tripped off by a fire alarm going off, which shuts the fans down. They weren't all turned back on. So we need to get better control of those, especially that's the biggest thing we probably learned from COVID is that fresh air and ventilation are so important in order to keep our buildings healthy. So we need to make sure that the unit vents are on, they're bringing in fresh air, that the exhaust fans are on, that they're taking the stale air out of the building. So that's what this item represents. Next item is fire alarm system over at Elm. That's an older type system over there. It is considered pre-existing non-conforming or grandfathered in, so it doesn't have to be replaced, but it does not have a lot of the ADA upgrades such as strobe units in the classrooms, things like that, that the state education department does require on fire alarm systems nowadays. So we recommended that that system be replaced in its entirety.
Priority one is about 4.2 million total.
So next item is steam leaks in the pipe tunnels. Again, you do have that mold issue that occurred there. Part of it is groundwater. Part of it is also because because of steam leaks. Those pipe tunnels have filled up with steam. You're getting warm side of slabs, you're getting moisture coming up through the slabs. And we believe that that is contributing to the mold issues that you're having over at that building. So we are recommending that those steam leaks be taken care of. There's some fairly major steam leaks in that building. It's going to require an outside contractor to come in and do that work, but definitely something that has to be taken care of.
The price tags on these, are they rough order of magnitude, or, I mean, you know, we have the 100K and the 150K every year that we can do. Given the time frame of a capital project, should we look at knocking off? I mean, if they really are 100K, not 300K, because I don't want to get into them and then have to shut it down. I mean, how good are these estimates?
Yeah, you know, I wasn't able to walk the full crawl spaces that day because the heating system was on and there was a ton of steam down in there. I wasn't able to get through. I was able to look in with a high beam flashlight, was able to see down as many crawl spaces as I could, and it's fairly substantial. It's a fairly good amount of leaks in there. Again, I wasn't able to quantify all of them, so this is kind of an allowance, but I'm going to say it's fairly close to ballpark.
Can I piggyback off of Harry? I'm sorry to interrupt and forgive me. This might not be related, but Elm Drive 3 years ago had that mold issue and there was so much construction done. And I have no idea who did it and how it was covered, but are there any parts where maybe we need to go back to see if there's a repeat situation? Because anything that would have to be redone, maybe they are responsible for covering it if it was not done properly or if it caused it to spread, and that could save on some of these costs. I'm really surprised to hear there's still mold in there, because 3 years they closed the building down and there was a bunch of.
There's no mold in there.
Oh.
The mold was remediated, that was taken care of. Our fear is that we don't want it to come back.
Oh, I'm sorry, they said there was mold on the out walls.
No, the mold is gone, but
Yeah,
the
mold is
work,
all-
the problem is that we still have the sources that created the problem before. And if we don't do something in a major way, I mean, it's just like if you've ever gone by Elm Drive in the winter time and the steam is pouring out of the side of the building. And, you know, we're trying to talk efficiencies and we're throwing it away. But yeah, no, I mean, and if there's anything that is broken that they put in, I would think that we'd file either a warranty or against insurance. But I think most of these issues are just the buildings have been let go for a long, long time.
And I don't think they did anything wrong. I think the remediation went fine. But these are just things that could contribute to mold coming back in the building. So obviously, we don't want to see that happen. So we need to take care of the drainage and the waterproofing and the leaks down in the crawl space area. Mold needs three things. It needs food, which could be paper, it could be a number of different things. It needs a warm, moist environment, it needs water. So what we want to do is try and eliminate the water and the warm, moist environment, steam as much as we can, so that you don't hopefully have this issue.
So are you guys, did you just sort of, what I'm seeing here is, and please don't take this wrong, but it's like piecemeal, right? You gotta fix these drains, you gotta fix these things, you gotta fix these things. Did we look at the cost of, I mean, one of the things that's gonna, unless climate change stops, we're gonna continue to have these huge swings in our climate. And if we don't do something, you know, radical with our heating and air conditioning, you know, these things are just gonna continue to rot. Did you guys look at the schools and say, what if we, you know, put a whole new HVAC system in there?
To a certain extent, yes. We looked at unit ventilators, there's an item in here that we'll talk about in a minute. We looked at air conditioning, there's an item in here that we can talk about in a minute.
Okay.
Tonight's night to talk about air conditioning.
Yeah,
So we have taken a more global look, but we haven't, I didn't put an item in to rip out all of your steam piping because that would have been millions of dollars worth of work. I don't think it's necessary. I think we just need to repair what's there, and then you need to spend a little bit of money each year continuing to maintain what you own.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, next up is badly rusted state electric water heater that is down in the boiler room. Typically, you would see a water heater up on a housekeeping pad, up on a concrete pad, get it off the floor. This one is sitting actually on the floor, and because there are leaks and valves in the boiler room, it's sitting in water. So the bottom of it is completely rotted out. And something that's going to have to be dealt with very, very soon. And the last item we were going to highlight is Frank Adams circuit breaker panels. Frank Adams hasn't been made in many, many years. They went out of business due to lawsuits because of faulty breakers and issues that they had. As a result, you can't buy new parts for them. You can sometimes buy refurbished parts on eBay, believe it or not, but it's very, very hard to get parts. So we're recommending that those older type panels be removed and replaced with new vintage panels.
You can really do 6 panels for 150 grand?
These are, yes. So what we normally do is we normally retrofit them. So we leave the back box there. We take
Okay.
all of the panel interiors out, put all new interiors in and new front cover. Because if not, we start messing around with the tile and walls.
Getting into priority 3 items, one item that was important to go through was refurbishing and restoring the existing gazebo on that property. This cost includes repointing the stone base, fixing the concrete slab, cracking, removing the lead base paint, replacing wood where we can, and then doing epoxy resin infill where we can keep the wood, and then some roof repair work and some finial work and various trim work. So that number includes all that. We did look at a number of whether we take it down and build a new one, which was in the order of anywhere from 100 to 150,000.
What about just taking it down? Hopefully nobody's yelling yet, but we just took it down and regraded everything and made it look nice over there. Any idea what that would cost?
It would be maybe a third of this.
Okay.
Potentially less.
Next item was rooftop exhaust fans, and this is common to all the buildings. And a lot of these fans are operational. You got them working again, you kept them working through COVID, which is good, but they're original to the building. So these fans are 50 or 60 years old now on most of your buildings. So we are recommending, again, as priority 3, a little bit lower priority, but we need to get those fans replaced to make sure that they continue to work, to bring in fresh air. Next up is insulation of the bare steam piping in the tunnels. I don't know if there was an abatement done at some point. There's a lot of uninsulated piping down there. Again, warm, moist environment, bad as far as mold is concerned. So we want to get insulation back on this. We'll talk a little bit about energy performance contracts, but things like this would be perfect for something like that, if that's something that the district wanted to consider. Next up is heating system isolation valves, and again, you'll see this in all the buildings. So if a unit vent coil breaks, right now, there are no valves throughout the building they can shut off in order to then go repair that unit vent coil. They have to shut off the boilers, they have to shut off the main down in the boiler room because the 60-year-old valves no longer hold or function properly. So this is just talking about adding heating system isolation valves. There are a number of items in here about the same thing on the plumbing system, just to allow your maintenance staff to conduct emergency and or routine repairs without having to shut the whole building. Next up is controls, automatic temperature controls, and that is a big need throughout the district. Again, perfect topic for potential energy performance contract, but this is talking about taking out your old pneumatic controls. That's a very old technology, very popular and state of the art at the time that the building was built, but no longer really used. Direct digital controls, electronic is what everybody uses now. It's much easier to control. There's much more visibility. You can see things on a computer. You can see what's happening in a unit. It gives you the ability to run and monitor your building much, much better. So we are recommending that those controls be replaced with DDC. Next one is tying the exhaust fans into that system. Right now, your fans run 24/7. So there was a control system in the building at one point. That control system is no longer functional. So the fans run continuously, which for ventilation purposes is okay, but during the winter, during the night, when normally you would shut the fans down, you're sucking all the heat out of the building. throwing it outdoors. So you now have to expend the energy to reheat the new air that's coming inside of the building. So yes, with COVID, you would do a pre-purge and a post-purge, maybe let them run an hour or two before, an hour or two after school. That makes a lot of sense, but I don't think you want them running all night and then over long weekends and things like that. So just need to get control of those fans so that they operate properly. And next is the plumbing system isolation valve. This building also has older boilers in it. So again, this is a lower priority, priority 4, not an immediate need. They are operational, but they are getting up there in age. So as part of your long-range planning, which this is a 5-year plan, we definitely recommend that you consider at some point replacing those boilers.
Now, have you guys taken a high look at the project plan? I mean, it's not just the price tag, it's the number of items. If we have to, I don't know, like get everybody out of Elm Drive for a year and put them someplace else. I mean, have you looked at what kind of project plan this would take to actually execute?
Yeah, we did. And I don't think any of these projects would require you to vacate any of the buildings. The work would either be summer sensitive, like boilers, we can't do in the middle of the heating season, obviously. We would try and get that done during the summer. We'll have some asbestos abatement that will have to get done. Those will probably finish up in September before we need heat. And a lot of the other items, like fire alarms, those can be done during the school year after hours, from 3 to 11. We keep the existing system functional, operational, and then we do cutovers one at a time. So there's nothing in the report at all that would require you to shut down buildings.
Okay.
Let's see, replace all General Electric power panels. So again, you have GE older panels original to this building as well. So there's only 2 of them. So we're recommending again, those be retrofit. Here's the unit ventilator item, the next 2 items, and then adding air conditioning. So in the 1960 and 64 wings, you have original unit vents. So when you think about it, they're 60 years old. You have a 60-year-old piece of mechanical equipment. That's way outlived its life expectancy. It's probably 35 or 40 years. So you're doing great, and they still operate, but what do you do with them? At some point, they are going to fail, not all at the same time. So you can continue to repair them, or you can consider replacing them. That would kind of dovetail into the next item, which is then if you replace them, would it make sense to add air conditioning into those unit vents? So the unit vents look like these gray boxes that you see under the windows here. You have those in each of the classrooms. So if we're going to add air conditioning, what we would do is we put a cooling coil in it. We put a remote condenser. Usually we use VRF now, variable refrigerant flow. And we would put a condenser on the roof that maybe handles 5 or 10 classrooms. And then that's how we cool them. So the advantage of doing it through the unit vent is you're bringing in outdoor air at all times, which by COVID and code we're required to do. And you're cooling that outdoor air. If you think about your other options, one is window units. So we can talk about that. So you're bringing in hot, humid air through the unit ventilator because you're required to ventilate. The window unit doesn't bring in any fresh air. And now you're trying to cool that hot, humid air that you're bringing into the classroom. With ductless splits, same thing. They don't bring in any fresh air. So you're bringing in hot, humid air through your ventilator. So it makes the most sense to do it through the unit ventilator, but it also costs the most in order to do it through the unit ventilator. So there are pros and cons of each. As we get into this process more, we'd be more than happy to discuss the pros and cons of each and answer any questions. Sorry.
Okay, moving to Alden, similar to Elm, we have water infiltration issues here as well. Pipe tunnels, very similar, smaller extent, but same item. And then again, moving into the building, we have original 1960s doors that we're looking to replace the door slab and hardware. So that's classroom doors as well as the multi-purpose room. And then just a couple of items like adding magnetic hole opens to the multi-purpose room. And that ties to fire alarms, shut and that doesn't need secured.
In this building, we actually have a couple of non-functional exhaust fans that can't be repaired, so obviously that's something that would have to be replaced, so we might have to buy those.
What's the one about the boiler tied into the storm sewer? That or storm system, I assume.
So right now, your boiler room sump pump pumps into your roof drain lines. And, you know, so it's not allowed to do that by code, because if you get oil or something mixed with that water, it needs to go into the sanitary system. So a lot of schools were piped like that back in the 50s and 60s. Because they didn't worry about such things, but now they do. So we need to protect that, get it over to the right system.
Priority 2 items, this ties into the foundation drainage. The foundation vents are a little bit low on that north side of the building. So we're looking to replace those, move them up. And that's just to get away from, you know, your potential big storm that might cause flooding up against the building, a lot of water into the pipe channels.
In this building, we have for ventilation pipe tunnels. Again, we need to move the air down there. Get that stale air out of there so that we don't have an issue with mold in the future. In the 1992 wing, that's where you had your biggest problem. And so sometimes, you know, even putting air conditioning does dehumidify, but it's not dehumidification. It's there to cool the space. A byproduct is that it does take some humidity out of the air. But sometimes when you have a wing that has as much water as you do, just because of where it is on the property, the amount of groundwater coming up through the slab and all of that, sometimes you just have to add dehumidification on top of the air conditioning. So that's what this item is calling for, just in the 1992 wing. 6 classrooms down that end of the building. Right, supplemental heat in those classrooms. So for some reason, the unit vents in those rooms were designed and installed smaller than the unit vents in the rest of the building. And they weren't designed with supplemental. Usually you see thin tube radiation that's in there, baseboard radiation, along with the unit vent in that wing of the building. It wasn't designed that way. And so the complaint was that it never properly heats down at that end. So basically what we're going to do is put some hot water baseboard in there to supplement the existing unit vent later so that you get the proper. You have 27 old rooftop exhaust fans on that building. Again, they're functional, except for the 2 that I mentioned earlier, but they are something that you're going to have to address at some point. And this building as well has steam leaks in the pipe tunnels. Next item is the sanitary line from the kitchen. That's something that backs up on a fairly regular basis on the district. So the only way to really resolve that is we have to video that. Video on the end of the snake and get it down there and figure out what's going on. Could be tree roots, it could be a break in the pipe, could be a couple of different things. So what I've represented here is money to bring in a contractor to video that, figure out exactly what's wrong, and then dig it up and make the proper repair so that you don't have that issue going on.
Moving into priority 3 items, there's 2 items in both are the asbestos tile. Some areas that's under carpet, but the majority of it is just classrooms in various parts of the building. And this is similar to Elm in terms of the percentage of it. It's about 1/3 of the building as asbestos tile.
Next item is steam traps. You have some system banging they complain about over there, and steam traps usually have to be done every 7 to 10 years. Yours have not been done in more than that, so we have to go in and reuse steam traps. Again, potential energy performance contract item because there is a lot of energy savings associated with it. Heating system isolation valves and plumbing system isolation valves. Again, same discussion that we had. to allow your maintenance team at least a chance to get in and shut down the area so that we can make it. On priority 4 items, we have one older boiler in this building. One of the boilers was replaced and is newer vintage, and they make that the lead boiler.
You just said this building. You're
Yeah.
still talking all of them? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we're recommending that the second boiler now be replaced, because if that first boiler goes down, you want something that's going to be reliable. And again, it's a lower priority, it's priority 4, the boiler does work, but it's at or near its life expectancy, so something to be considered for potential long-term plan. We have a couple of original GE power panels in that building, actually 10 of them. So we're recommending that they be retrofitted with new breakers, things like that. And then replace all 1964 wiring devices, switches, outlets, things like that. Okay, jumping over to the middle school. Sorry, I know, we'll try and move this along a little bit quicker.
So priority 1 for the middle school. These first items are really the big envelope items. The windows and the roof. This essentially accounts for about 80,000 square feet of your building. So we're looking to replace all the windows in the building, with the original ones and the original roof that's on this building. And then moving into inside the building, similar to the elementary schools, doors and chair lifts. The chair lifts in the center hall, they do work or aren't great and should be replaced with a better function.
The roofing,
Yes.
so do we have serious, where's that like? No, do we have serious leaks in the roof?
In this building?
Yeah.
I will try not to laugh at that question. We have significant leaks in a number of places. I know Steve just looked at me and smiled. But yeah, we've had previous roof work done. We have some mysterious leaks from mechanical repairs or mechanical installations where they ran pipes through the roof and now the leaks around that. We have bellies in the roof where we get ponding and puddling. We noticed this year specifically in the winter that when we had melting and refreezing and then rain on top of that, it exacerbated the issue. So we're just a little bit, at a place where it's not enough to address it in pieces and repair. I had in my 2 years here, I've had roof repair guys here all the time. And it just kind of, it's Band-Aids and we need to make them more comprehensive. And the only reason I laughed is because like sometimes if you walk through here after a storm, there's just buckets everywhere and we're trying to use diverting drains to redirect. But it is an issue.
Okay, priority 1, still non-functional boys bathroom exhaust fan by room 46. Get that working again. Clear rooftop plumbing vents, as Elliot said, we go everywhere. So we're up on your roof and yes, I looked down your plumbing vents. And yes, some of them are clogged. They have rocks down there. They have balls down there. They have plastic bottles down there. What happens is when you clog those plumbing vents, your system does not drain properly. So we'll put in an item to have somebody go in, clean them out, and then put vandal resistant caps on so that kids can't throw stuff back down. Next page, provide a fire suppression system on kitchen hood and kitchen over here. Kind of surprised that 3 out of your 4 kitchens do not have fire suppression on your kitchen hoods. Usually the fire marshals flag that, and apparently yours did not. The high school does have fire suppression, the other 3 buildings did not. So you'll see that in all the buildings. That is a health and safety fire protection type of a recommendation. And then the next one was we went from the roof looking at your plumbing vents to crawling around in your crawl spaces. And you have a substantial leak in the crawl space between the upper building and the second building. And we went down there and there was so much water leaking over so long a period of time. There was conduit sitting on the floor. The conduit was completely gone, it's completely rusted out. And the wiring is all exposed, sitting in the ground in the water. So obviously, I'm hoping, I don't know if that's live or not, that wiring, I'm hoping it's not, but it is something that we need to take a look at and try to get repaired ASAP. And last priority one at the middle school is carbon monoxide detection. Right now, you have battery operated CO detection in all of your buildings, which meets code. Our concern is always though, if you have a CO episode on a Friday night, you're not back into the building until Monday or Tuesday on a long weekend. The battery is going to die on that CO detector as it's trying to sound an alarm. And when you walk in, you could be walking into a CO episode. So we recommend that it be tied into the fire alarm system so that it dials central station and it lets the district know that you have an issue so that you can send somebody over.
Moving to some priority twos, front parking lot between two light poles has some drainage issues with the basins there. So we're looking to dig that up and reconstruct that. And associated with that is the just the traffic pattern as you come into that parking lot. I'm sure you guys are aware of how that tight entry is quite difficult. So there's concerns about maybe replacing that. And then some interior items, corridor lockers are inconsistent throughout the building. There's multiple types spread out based on how the building is used. We're looking to replace all those lockers for consistency and positioning them appropriately to where the buildings are. And lastly, some of the nosings and the treads on the stairs are a little loose. That's just a safety issue.
Next item we've highlighted is boiler water treatment. You had that in all of your buildings, and in 2018, for some reason, that was discontinued. We recommend that that be reinstituted in order to improve the longevity of your boilers, help them run more efficiently, and help them run better. It's not an expensive item. The system is there. Bringing in a new contractor, they might want to change a couple of things out, so that's why we're showing a little bit of money in there, but it is something that you should seriously consider. Next item is the tech room piping. That's what Elliot referred to before. So large piping went through that tech room up to the rooftop units that were installed there. And there are leaks around that piping. So if you go into the tech room, you can see the water staining coming down the inside of that tech room front wall. So it's something that needs to be taken care of. And this was the water, the valve leak is the water that actually created that conduit to rot out. So it was a fairly substantial valve leak down there. We pointed that out to the maintenance staff the day we were here. We came up out of the crawl space, so they are aware of it. So for all I know, probably been fixed by now, but definitely something that should be up. Next page, Frank Adams panels, again, same as our discussion of the other building. And properly label all electrical panels. So this is something that was brought to our attention by the staff. When you look at an electrical panel, typically, there's a couple of things in there that are labeled. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. When you have an emergency, you have to go shut something off quickly, circuit off quickly, or reset a circuit because something is not functional. When you go to the electrical panel, it's not labeled well. It's very, very difficult to do a good job. So the staff has tried to do that as best they can. But what we've done is put an item in here in order to have an electrical contractor come in and try and tone all of those out.
On priority three.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so priority three items, again, PAT flooring, this is asbestos tile, and then there's some various areas on the building that are just telegraphing through the tile that need to be addressed. So that's roughly about 40% of your building is asbestos tile, and so this one has a lot more than these elementary schools.
So I do want to be clear, asbestos sounds scary. You have asbestos tile in the classrooms. It is not friable. It is not dangerous. It's not a concern. But if you have to drill through it, if you want to move things, drill into it, secure furniture, whatever, then it becomes a concern. So it's just something, again, in long-range planning, talked about overall planning, looking at buildings that you should use.
They're also very well worn and patched in a lot of areas on site.
Yes. We have 17 older exhaust fans, excuse me, at this building. Again, heating system isolation valves, tying the exhaust fan into a day-night system. Again, they run 24/7 in this building as well. And plumbing system isolation. Okay, jumping to the high school priority ones, there's a weight room now in what was a gymnasium storage room. That was not designed from a fresh air standpoint as a student occupied space, it was storage space, so we have to make sure that we get mechanical fresh air in there. That's the change in occupancy. Again, there's some concern as I asked questions about the relief air systems and the exhaust fans. The staff was not sure of where a lot of them were. So we need to make sure that they're there, that they're operating properly. I went back and I looked at your building design drawings. I was able to find some information for those fans on those design drawings. So we need to come back in and make sure that those relief air fans are working properly. Again, you're bringing in fresh air through your air handlers. We need to make sure that the exhaust fans and relief air systems are working properly. This was an interesting one. So you have registers in the hallway, but apparently no ductwork connected to them. Not quite sure how that happened. What happened? Again, I went back to look at the original building drawings and I didn't see the ductwork or the registers on the building drawings that I looked at. So I'm not exactly sure what the intent was there, but the complaint was during the winter, it's very cold in the hallways, and during the summer, it's very hot in the hallways because they're not connected into the ductwork from the main units that be in that area. So I put money in order to connect them. Next one is to repack the fire sprinkler tank. So apparently you lose about 750 gallons a week of water out of that tank. It's a 10,000 gallon tank that's up on the hill back behind the building. It's used as a reservoir for the fire sprinkler system. There's a fire pump in the boiler room. And somehow, I'm not sure how it's piped. The existing building drawings did not give me any kind of details, but you have to add 750 gallons of water every week to that tank in order to keep it filled.
This is village water.
It's leaking somewhere.
No, the water that we're putting in is village water. I mean, in other
Yeah,
words, we're
that's-
paying
yeah,
for it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I'm not quite sure where it's leaking from. Apparently it happens the same day every week, so I'm not sure how to explain that one for you either, but obviously we need to investigate that and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's nothing. Okay, so repair the chiller, something on priority twos now. So you have a couple of bed compressors in your carrier active snap chillers out back behind the building there. We need to get those chillers back up and running. We need to get those compressors back in now. I would recommend replacement of the chillers, but right now those are R22. If I replace the chillers, it's going to buy you a ton of work in addition to just replacing the chillers. So the best solution at this point is to get replacement compressors, replace the compressors and get them functional.
So basically, if rather than continue to listen to the hit parade, this is 30 years of just no spending, no taking care of buildings, just watching them fall apart and doing nothing about it. Is that pretty close? I mean, I didn't see anything that said, oh, we need to do a new something because the new ones are cool. This is all, you know, the pipe's never connected, so maybe we ought to connect it. The thing's leaking all over hell and it's rotted away and nobody's ever done anything about it.
I'd say you're in the same boat as pretty much every other school district. You know, capital spending is no longer a priority in the state's eyes. They don't give aid the way they used to give aid. You know, they instituted programs that you now have to absorb. So capital spending went way down basically by every school district in New York State. So what you're doing is now you're forced into a bond referendum cycle. So you basically every 20 years or so, you have to do a bond, try and play catch up and do as much as you can. And then 20 years later, as that debt service comes off, you have to do another bond and try and play catch up and try and
Yeah,
get
but
that.
some of this stuff could just as easily, you spend $200, get a professional in here to fix the thing, and then it doesn't turn into a rusted pile of garbage on the floor 10 years from now, and then we all complain about it, we gotta go out with a capital project. This is, in my mind, most of what I'm hearing here is just nobody paying attention. That the schools have been left to just run, and oh, if it breaks, well, just disconnect it. What the hell we need it for?
And some of that's a function of necessity in the moment that requires a little bit of follow-up. So like a lot of the Elm Drive, the disabled heating units, that was it's leaking at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8:30 and the kids are coming, make the leak stop. You got to circle back and actually do the repair after the fact, and we have to have funding to do that. To Fred's point, the state gives us more money to replace things than they do to fix things. So we have to be very intentional with our budgeting. To Barry's point, to stay ahead of that curve as best we can in between the replacement cycles.
Yeah, once you get it replaced, repaired, fixed, whatever, then you keep it that way. You don't move into a house and 35 years later you go, the roof fell in and I can get a glass of water in the kitchen just by holding it out because the water runs through the roof. We've been harping on this for the last 6 years of take care of these buildings the way you take care of your home. Or hopefully the way you take care of your home. Anyway, I don't mean to just, but this just pisses me off, no end.
I'll try to get us through the rest of the notes here, and if there's any other questions while we have the gentleman here, we can certainly address them. But the total cost of everything that they identified is $41.7 million. And the reason why I gave you all this very long list is so that when you see the $41.7 million, nobody stares at us and says, well, how could it possibly cost that much money? Because you just saw half an hour worth of how could it possibly cost that much money. Common issues, as these gentlemen alluded to, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, lighting, ADA compliance, floors, doors, windows. I mean, it's pretty typical things, and it's nothing that surprises us. What I did observe while Fred and Greg were going through the list is everyone in the room has a little bit of different experience in different buildings. So while some of us were nodding and going, yes, absolutely, other people were going, wow, I didn't know that was a thing there. So this was a great opportunity to get everybody on the same page and get one good first look at what our issues are, right? Because from here, we start to build out how we're going to address this in terms of project design.
Now, is it possible, because we've talked about energy projects before, and I didn't see any of the usual suspects, like get rid of all the fluorescents for LEDs that are usually the saving spots. Do we know how much of this would be aided? Do we know how much we could get out of have we looked at it that like what would we have to go to the public with? Starting with everything. And then
if I could just say one thing to that point, because I think you touched on something that's very important. Everything that we assessed in this process is existing conditions and to remediate them, right? So improvements aren't necessarily the mission. When we've had, so a few months ago, we had an energy performance contractor discussion, right? How could we save money on utility? How can we reduce our carbon footprint? If you remember, the folks that were on the board, remember that was about a year ago, or a year and a half ago, I think. And one of the things that we said was we're reluctant to commit to an energy project when we don't know what all the needs are. So if we're going to remove this ceiling, I'm not going to change the lights and then remove the ceiling, which requires me to take the lights down, right? So we wanted to get here first. I think as we get into project design, the recommendations from our design professionals would be, instead of replacing in kind, you could upgrade. I think Fred said that earlier, right? If you want to rip out the entire HVAC system, we can talk about the cost of an upgrade or a different design. But that happens after we get the conditions assessed.
okay.
I think, we identified in the report about $5.1 million worth of work that we felt would fit within an energy performance contract. But you're right, it wasn't an audit specifically for an EPC, but LED lighting is the low hanging fruit. That's going to be the big driver of a lot of things. Controls are also a big part of it. Water heaters, boilers, those would all fit well into an EPC. Again, a lot of our clients, when they're looking to do a bond referendum, they'll look at it and to dovetail that with an EPC to leverage the amount of money in the bond. So basically, the way an EPC works is that it pays for itself out of the energy savings over an 18-year or less period. So there is no cost to the taxpayer. you get aid back on an EPC at whatever your building aid ratio is. Now, there are two scenarios. You can not vote it publicly. It only requires board resolution to move ahead, but then you lose your 10% incentive. Or you can vote it publicly and you get your 10% incentive, but you'll have to wait until your next vote date in order to do that. So most districts don't vote it publicly. Most districts just do it through board resolution. It's district choice. But it would make a lot of sense because you could probably do a $10 million project doing lighting and all of the things that we talked about as part of an EPC that you now don't have to do as part of a bond. So you get to take that money out and do other stuff as part of a bond. So it makes a lot of sense to at least discuss that and dovetailing with a bond. And I'm more than happy to do that.
And you can also add new things like solar panels on roofs or on sites can be part of an EPC now because they have a simple payback less than 18 years.
Once we have a roof that's not Swiss cheese, we might be able to put. solar
Right,
panels.
do the roof first, absolutely.
Right.
Well, and that's, so if you look at on the slide that's on the board, and this is really well timed, because we talked about, strategic plans a little bit earlier, right? We want to be aligned across the board, right? So if you remember, as we were going through the list, there was a couple of comments about, well, we had to subdivide a room, but we didn't provide mechanical fresh air, or, we had to repurpose a storage space as a weight room, right? So there's certain program needs, right? Student-driven needs that we end up building around after the fact. So we want to be very intentional with our process and understand what the needs are for our kids out the gate as we're building these projects out. Because if we have to replace or repair substantial parts of buildings and systems, we want to do so in a way that's really conducive to what we're going to use that space for. And in order to do that, we really want to be following the strategic plan and the program plans of the district with our capital planning process so that everything comes together in one shot. You can notice there's also a bullet about funding. So again, to Fred's point, and then Perry, what you were talking about, right? We're sitting on about $6.75 million in capital reserve right now. There's roughly $5 to $10 million worth of EPC opportunities. We do have reimbursable expenses through the SAFE Act. We can get money from the state for doors and other security features. There's a number of interior doors we can do. We get $1,000 per interior door from the state for that. There's also our Smart Schools Bond Act, which is technology money. We have about $324,000 unspent in there. So that also helps. So as we're doing this planning process, we're going to look at every single possible funding source and pull them together and say, okay, so the district's debt assessment is this, where we need to have our municipal advisors look at our debt plan and say, with this much debt coming off, we can replace it at a 0% increase to the taxpayer, right? We keep our debt service level for the next 18 years. We add to that the EPC money, the state reimbursements, the capital reserves, and we really start to get a comprehensive picture of what we can afford and how do we afford, what we can afford without costing the taxpayer any more money, and or if we're willing to ask the taxpayers to kick it up a little bit if there's value there and we can substantiate that, then we as a collective have to communicate that to the community. So again, we get into our next step. So this is kind of like the next or the second half of the timeline again that we provided in the fall, but updated with our current situation. Over this summer, I would really like to bring in a construction management firm. So these are the guys who are on site supervising the actual projects. And we bring them in early in the process because, no offense to these gentlemen, they know a lot about what they're doing. But these are builders, and they're going to come in and help us collectively verify all these numbers, because as we're going out to the public, we want to make sure that we double check all of our potential expenses, the work that goes into the bill, make sure we don't miss anything. And having the construction managers on board early on just helps us give us that extra set of eyes that's going to be involved throughout the process. We'd like to, hopefully our strategic plans committees start work on time in September. And so while those committees start in September and October, we can start the capital planning committee with whether we're going to leverage our facilities committee of the board or we're going to assemble a new committee. We have a little time to figure that out. But the folks that are really going to crunch down which things we're going to address and why, based on the feedback we get from the other committee work that's happening in strategic planning and program planning. Because remember, everything that we say yes to means we're probably going to have to say no or not yet to something else on that list. And so we're going to need a small brain trust of folks to really help us whittle that down into a manageable project that we can present to the community. I'm also going to ask that we have our municipal advisors, whether we use the company that we have, we bring in a new firm that specializes in debt service projections and management to look at our debt, because I've worked in districts and I've seen it go both ways. Some districts will say, I mean, we'd love to do 10 million, but we can't afford it. And then the debt analysis comes back and goes, you can actually afford 18. Do you want to go to 18? And they go, oh my God, that would be amazing. Right? And some districts go, we got $30 million in need, so let's get it done. And then you realize I've got $12 million in aid coming off in the next 18 years. And if I go beyond that, we're going to be asking the taxpayers for a lot more money than they're willing to shoulder. So we're going to need that assessment done. I'd like to have that done in the fall while we're doing the other committee work. But hopefully by November, December, we can sit down with these gentlemen and say, okay, these are our priorities. This is what we're going to teach. This is how we're going to teach it. This is what we need to teach it. And these are the top things we need to address in these buildings right now, whether it's health and safety or program driven. And then they're going to do their design work to do the front end of what we present to the community, whether that's rudimentary drawings, plans, roughly what percentage do you guys drill down in the pre-referendum process?
Well, we'll put as much effort in as required to express what the bond issue is about. We'll include renderings and 3D views of things these days. In terms of fee-wise, it's 3% of our fee generally, pre-ref.
Okay, and so that's, I mean, that's what we would like to go, once we get to January, we'd like to come back to the board in January and share those documents with you. These are our projections, this is our plan, this is what we think we can manage and afford. And with the board's blessing and support, we would like to spend February and March presenting it to our community. We want to go out and bring it to the taxpayers, show them what we want to build and why, and explain it to them, give them a chance to give us feedback, to dial in. You know, we had initially with this timeline projected to piggyback our general fund vote in May, and this aligns perfectly with that. This would be like a proposition 2 on our typical May vote, so we would adopt it on April 18th with the general fund budget. And then at May 26th, at the vote, we would have hopefully voter support to say yes, we get approved, and then we start the actual, what they call the post-referendum process, which is finishing the drawings, getting everything detailed out and submitted to the state for review. The state brings it back, we go out to bid, and we get to work.
Elliot, just out of curiosity, how much of the 41 million is health and safety?
All of your priority 1 items, for the most part, were health and safety items. So roughly half, I think.
14.5.
14.5, okay, I didn't do the math. But again, that's the first stroke, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense to do them first, it just means that those are the needs identified. But I just wanted to summarize with this last slide, 41.7 million in total costs. Our oldest building is 62 years old, and a lot of the systems that Fred was talking about that are obsolete are original to those 60-year-old buildings. We haven't had a major capital project since 2026, and I always like to highlight the statistics provided by the EPA. The federal government did a study on student performance and how it relates to building conditions. 4 out of 5 students per 1,000, and a lower annual dropout rate of 10 to 13 students per 1,000. So with roughly 850 kids in our district, I mean, that's maybe 3 or 4 kids that actually come to school more often if we take care of our buildings. That's students, maybe 8, 9 kids that will stick it out because this might be the nicest place they go every single day. And our test scores can increase anywhere from 3 to 17%. So as we're on the quest to, I think we all want Millbrook to be the best school district in the country, not even just the state. I said that once and somebody corrected me. Everything plays a part, including the academic environment. And so it's not just where education happens, but it really is, fixing our buildings to support the educational process. So with that, questions or comments?
When we come up with this presentation that we're taking to the public, the first question that would be on my mind would be, so you're gonna fix all this stuff and then it's all gonna go to hell, because you're not gonna maintain it? We need to have that answer. Like, what are we gonna do differently this time that we're not gonna end up sitting in here 10 years from now saying, oh yeah, you should see how bad this is leaking all over the floor. We need to have sort of 2 answers. What happened? And I don't mean like, you should tighten that screw. What happened in the past that's not going to happen in the future? Because everything I see here, most of it, replacing the windows, you can kind of, all right, these were garbage when they were put in probably, but it's not something somebody ignored completely. But a lot of this stuff is we just didn't do it. We're not, and And after a number of years of not taking care of what you got, it goes to hell and you gotta replace it all. So we need to have that in the story because
It's not just we,
Yeah.
we're the trustees now of what we have. The trustees at the time, we don't know their thought process. Some of their thought processes now, but it's down the road.
Yeah.
We can only guarantee what we can do when we're here to make things better. And hope that the following trustees that follow us can maintain what's been given to them.
well, maybe it needs to be part of the facilities procedures and policies. At once a month, everything needs to, again, just making it up because but once a month, everything's got to be reviewed. Did you do the maintenance on this stuff? Maintenance schedules have to be in place and need to trigger alerts or
Well, I think we're already moving in that direction.
I know,
And I do thank
I know.
the board. I mean, we did significantly increase our facilities budget in the annual budget for 22-23 this year. As part of that process, and I am grateful that you all supported that. We put more money into contract services, maintenance reserves, and really bringing training back in-house too. So it's not just funds for contractors, but it's training our guys to do the work here, the people we have to do better work for us here. And we're trying to bring labor back to our staff, away from BOCES, away from contractors, but having contractors at the ready. We have, for the first time, I think in years, we've put out major contractor service bids that are published, and hopefully we'll be awarding contracts in August so that when we need that heavy lift help, it's available at the drop. So, the board's already moving in that direction, and I think our relationship with Board of Administration as we plan budget year over year is going to be keeping a careful eye on, are we putting enough money in the right places to get us where we need to be so that we don't end up back in this position.
And I don't think you need to convince us. I mean, we've been yelling at you guys, talking nicely to you guys and trying to get things done right with trained contractors if necessary. We've all been working in that direction. My concern is when the public sees 41 million or whatever they see, that, we need to have that answer. Hey, look, we tried in the past 20 years, it's been, minimum maintenance, keep the costs down, all that stuff. And that became, the mantra for maintenance. In the last 6 years, we've tried our best to continue to push this thing. So we're taking care of it and we're not just putting in new every time that we let it wear out. But we need that story. And we need to be honest with the citizens about, look at this, there's a conduit that doesn't exist anymore that has maybe has live wires running across the floor. How did that happen? Because nobody, well, anyway, I'll stop. But okay, yeah, go ahead.
I would also want to see what is priority by regulation. This was priority, but what you felt most important, like some of the things that were bold. I think one of the things was like gazebo, but I think filtering also that list of what you thought is priority, what is required.
Yeah. Any other questions before I ask about one specific item?
That's what I was going to mention. So go ahead.
All right, so one of the items that's in there, the gazebo, I think if I understood it correctly, it's about 20K to demolish it and clean it all up, and it's about 60K, 67K to fix it all. We've been having this ongoing discussion with the Friends of the Gazebo about, what we would be willing to kick in, hopefully, and what we would need from, a public organization like that. Have we had any follow-up with them, or?
Well, Ellie can speak to it. We plan on having one next week after this meeting, but there's some historical significance to it to some members of the community. So, they didn't want us to remove it. Our hands are kind of tied with that amount as far as what we can do. So we really just kind of wanted to break it down because our original quote was somewhere in that ballpark.
About
Right.
58,000, and it was about a year and a half ago, so.
And everybody thought that was crazy, and now we're at 67. So I know costs rise and everything else, but it is amazing to think that that small structure can cost 67 and 120 to build new. It's mind-boggling. But that's really what we wanted you to kind of confirm more to the public as far as that's what the cost would be. And I think you broke it down in the original as far as why it would cost that much. So.
Yeah, we have specific line items.
Right.
All right, so I guess we can, I mean, unless anybody has any other questions about the gazebo.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So after the last board meeting, I had come across an article about the gazebo, and it was not really clear. I would love if someone would explain to me what the historical significance is, because in the article, it's kind of like, some people believe, I think designer James Ware had built it, and some people believe that a certain family had done. If anyone, I would just really, I'm very interested to know what.
Well, you can join our call when we schedule if you like. You're more than happy to.
There's not four of you.
It's really, I think the significance is how long it's been in the community, how many pictures it's been in the background. Just, it's been kind of a landmark of Millbrook. I don't think there's any true, historical, it's more of just a landmark of the area.
But maybe rather than just, maybe we should have the group come back in, and we now know the numbers. I mean, I think we get a consensus from the board about whether, we even want it on the property. I mean, I would assume that's a yes, but who knows? But maybe we could have them come back in now that we know how much it would cost and how much, we feel like our responsibility is.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is for 60 to 120,000, you could put a beautiful stage in the Elm, yard, and it could be used for all the Elm students and everything else. So that's kind of where that's located. It's really not useful for many except the community as a landmark, which that's kind of the unfortunate thing.
There's definitely a high level of interest in that group for funding the restoration of the gazebo, as is Where is. Certainly in our committee conversations with them, it's been challenging because we can't speak for the entirety of the board, certainly in that venue. But there's a high level of interest in at least partnering with or them providing some or all of the funding to do the work. The work would have to be approved by the board and the community. Responsible, it would count as a capital improvement. It hits the cost threshold, which means it needs a vote. We'd have to fund it, at least at the onset, even if they were donating to reimburse us. But because of how we're structured, and this is informative for you folks and anybody watching at home, we're responsible to the State Department of Education for anything we build. So it's not local code, it's not town of Washington, it's not Village of Millbrook, it goes right to the state and has to be done to their specifications. They have to approve the drawings, these gentlemen will have to design it as we would do any other educational space. And so it's a bit more involved than I think most folks anticipated. But certainly, I think, would you like us to recommend, in lieu of having a committee conversation, that we invite them to one of the August meetings for a discussion? Does that make more sense?
To me, it does. I mean, we need to have a discussion that says, do you have any money? Do we have any money? Can we spend money? Should we spend money? I mean, we need to have those specific conversations. Because otherwise, we're just gonna, they're gonna think that we're moving in one direction. We think we're moving in another direction. We need a sort of a stake in the ground and say, here's where we are.
I think it was important to explain to the public that we can't just have local carpenters come and help. That would be a great feel-good moment for the school and everything else, but to your point, we can't do that.
There's a lot of things.
So that's where
to help with.
the red tape stops a lot of what they want to do.
For sure. So I will reach out to the Friends of the Gazebo organizational leaders and invite them to a board meeting. I'll put them in touch with Cheryl and maybe we can get them scheduled.
Okay. Any other questions for Elliot or the architects? Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Stay cool.
Yeah, enjoy your car air conditioner.
All right, under correspondence, the BOCES update. really, it's a little bit late, but it includes the breakfast for the valedictorian, salutatorian. Let's see. Next is, I am not reading this one. The seeker, do I have a motion to accept the seeker negative declaration?
Questions from the public.
Oh, questions. Did I miss it?
No,
Oh,
online.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, he was gazebo. It's for the gazebo website.
Okay, so there are none.
And there's none online.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to accept the seeker negative declaration?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any against? Approve the food service consultant, Padron. Well, you can read it. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I was gonna get more of the hang of it over here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not putting you guys on that side of the room anymore.
Not in-
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. Is there any discussion?
That's
We'll
wonderful.
probably talk a little more about this in executive session too. All right, all in favor? Any against? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Andrews, excuse me, Andrew Strawinski? Yeah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Victoria Curie? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any questions or comments about it? I would like to see what we're gonna do with this position in the future. I think that, not tonight, but I think we need to have a discussion about that. Make sure that we're getting, the right person to get us the most value. But that's just me. All in favor? Any against? Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Andrea Corbett?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, first one, do I have a motion to accept the donation from the MEF of $6,176? Do I have a second? And everybody's passing
I'll
out.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, MEF. Do I have a motion to accept the donation of $3,400 with gratitude from MEF?
So
You, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
thank you.
Yeah, really. All in favor? Against? All right, so couple things. First of all, President's report. Dina, you want to introduce yourself since you just sort of snuck in, started causing trouble already?
Yes, it's so nice to meet everyone in person and be here with you. And I'm learning so much. So it's nice to observe and kind of get to know each of you through your speaking points.
Very good. Well, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
All right. Second thing was, it's sort of a big deal, but it's not a big deal. The NISBA convention in Syracuse. It's not so much registering to get in the conference, it's registering to get a hotel near there. So if any of you, and it's actually, I mean, there's a part where you go through and they throw, pencils and pens and all kinds of stuff at you, but there's a series of talks, usually from other school districts, about how they, whatever they did, and how they actually accomplished what they were doing. And there's some really good presentations. So if you want to go, and it's covered, by the board, just let Cheryl know so she can make reservations as soon as possible. All right. And I think that's all I've got.
It's October 27th, 29th, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't trust you guys on
All right. Vice President's report.
Yeah, I got about an hour worth.
that.
Superintendent's report.
Yep, good evening, everybody. A couple of shout outs. We had a staff barbecue. The administrative team hosted a barbecue for staff, just as a thank you for a good year and their great work. So well attended, and thank you MEF for funding this very special event. Seems to be an annual event that's funded by MEF, so thank you. Just you'll see a note from a teacher to our head maintenance worker, thanking him for just taking care of teachers' needs and always checking in. I always say our head maintenance worker, John Mullins, checking in with people. You need anything? No. Do you need anything? And he can take care of the small jobs and the big jobs and just making a good day for everybody with those gestures. So he's much appreciated from this teacher and all of us. Food service consultant, thank you so much for approving that addition to the Milberg family or team. This person comes highly recommended, and this person, Nancy Padron, is going to help us with nutrition analysis, menu design and cycle, reviewing production records, helping us with their inventory, creating an inventory system that is efficient and effective, also in training our staff in how to take inventory in using common language, as well as health and safety. So we're happy she's coming aboard. So we'll keep you abreast of the progress that we make, the plan of action that we create together over the time that she's here with us. The administrative team has been reviewing and revising the code of conduct as they typically do on an annual basis, because we will bring it forward to the board for discussion, review, and approval. There's also a public comment part of that, as well as posting the code of conduct for the public and the community to see. They can also read it, the draft, the revisions, and reach out to me at any point in time with questions, suggestions, ideas. Our focus areas heavily included code of conduct and consequences, dress code, and use of electronics. And that came from the building leaders, as well as the public administrators and staff members. Just like these are areas that we'd like you to focus on or and revise accordingly. Summer Scholars, we opened our doors on Tuesday, July 5th, to 40 students who were provided with a basket chock filled with supplies. We'll have an article about our program highlighted in our next Blazer bulletin. And I want to say a shout out to Samantha Bopp. She is our coordinator, and the opening and the running of this program has been just smooth and efficient. So bravo to Samantha. New teachers, the district has successfully hired 12 new teachers to fill the current vacancies. We're excited to fully onboard them. And our orientation will be on August 29th and 30th for our new teachers. Dutchess County ELC grant, this has been in the works for a while. It was mostly focused around the screening of staff and students to ensure that we could preserve and manage and maintain in-person learning. So there is money that is available for certain different kinds of purposes. And I'm very interested in the criteria that allows funding for staff members. including administrative teams, our IT people, our nurses. So I'm going to submit all of the hours and time and work that our staff put into keeping us in person and see where that takes us. So hopefully we'll get the funding that they deserve. I know they did it because they're committed and they love our kids and are dedicated to our district. And thank yous are great, but funding always helps a little bit too. Administrative team retreat. The team will be attending DayTag. You'll see that it's Data Analysis Technical Assistance Group summer conference in Saratoga this week. Sessions include serving the underserved, creating a district data vision, best practices, and verifying and certifying year-end data, and data lab and experience, which is facilitated by our very own Victoria Curry and Mike Sotero. And Al Hamill, our athletic director, reached out to me. He asked me to just give you a quick overview or update of sports right now. He said the 2022 spring sports season was a success. Millbrook Blazers athletics registration is very strong for the fall, with over 180 students signed up to participate in fall sports. 8-man football update. He said, good news. We will be attempting to run a modified 8-man football team with 15 students registered thus far. Not so great news, varsity 8-man football will not be able to run again, and Dover has opted out of the merge for this fall. Millbrook only has 5 students, 2 seniors and 3 sophomores that have signed up for the 8-man football in the fall of 2022. Al did attempt to create a merger with Weebatuck, but they too struggle with interest from student athletes. There are no other possibilities for a merger for 2022. So we're looking to build from the ground up and get our modified 8-man football program going this year in hopes that we will again have a varsity program soon. Al will need to inform the families of the 5 students affected prior to us opening up the official registration for fall sports later in July. So he just wanted the board to be aware this communication will be happening. Al also said that he will provide a more in-depth update around the athletics program at a board meeting in August. And that concludes my report.
You wanted to talk, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just had a question before you move on. Regarding the code of conduct. That's student code of conduct.
Correct.
Is there, I don't know if this exists, a code of conduct for staff, employees, when they're hires, there a handbook, or a policy, anything like that?
Come on. There's a raised hand in the back.
Contains a public conduct on school property section, every code I know of that articulates expectations for general individuals. There are also, in most of the codes of conduct, has the rights and responsibilities of different individuals, including teachers, administrators. It's just in there, not necessarily in a conspicuous location, but that it is all subsumed within that document, which is usually policy 5300. But is there a handbook? I don't know, but I know there are general rules and considerations that are set forth in the code of conduct, even though it generally is the student code. It is really the code of conduct. It's a little larger than just students, is the short answer. So then a lot of the other terms and conditions are set forth in the collective bargaining agreements for the various.
Okay, so when a new employee is hired, are they given anything in writing? That I mean, it sounds to me that there's pieces of code of conduct.
There's a packet with a bunch of things, mandated policies that they need to review and acknowledge, acceptable use policy. I would imagine the code of conduct or a hyperlink to where it's accessible would be part of that. And then they would get their collective bargaining agreement, because that's like the Bible for each of the respective units. I don't know exactly what's in your hiring materials, but I'm sure they get something. I just don't know if it's a comprehensive packet or if it's this is there and this is there.
Okay, I'm just wondering. I mean, just personally, I would like to see what they get. I'm not speaking for the entire board. If an issue came up, you don't ever want to hear, oh, I wasn't aware that I couldn't do that. That's all.
I have a question to whom it may concern. Do we need to get the Millbrook parental consent for student COVID testing every day still in the summer?
Oh,
Why?
I'm getting
I'm just asking a question.
We can shut it down anyway, right?
I deleted it.
30th, right?
It comes in every day, so
Every
it's
day.
just.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Prescribing some-
At
Remember
least-
us?
no, wait.
It's just me.
No, it's if your first name begins with Chris,
Distribution list,
apparently.
Chris.
Only gonna go to Mr. Rosenberg.
Just send only to Rosenberg.
Me too.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else on Laura's report, you also have the low request courses.
Yeah.
So every year, you have to look at the course request, and I think it's below 8. Is that-
I did 10.
No, I mean, where we basically have to take a serious look at, should we even bother offering? I think it's anything below 8 or below, but 8 is usually, that's pretty good. I mean, we won't know for sure until September, October.
Yeah, so, well, I'm gonna try and get it to you sooner than that. I'll try and get it to you for the last board meeting in August when the schedules are finalized. What's tricky is some of these students may pick like an AP computer science class, for example, but if it doesn't fit in their schedule, they might have a backup class that they want to take. So being small, we have a lot of classes which are called singletons that only appear once in the master schedule. Sometimes they're in conflict with other courses that a student might want to take. There's a finite number of places that they can fit within the scheduled day. So that being said, these are courses with low requests, meaning that only 10 students requested French 2. And I just put little notations there, such as if a student wanted to get with the equivalent of advanced French diploma, they would need to take that class. You know, French 4, I didn't really put anything there because there's nothing specific about French 4, except that they want to get to French 5 and get the potential for college credit, they have to take French 4. At one point in time, these French 4 and 5 were combined classes, but now with the DCC credit awarded potentially for French 5, we have to keep them separate. So that's not necessarily a solution. Algebra 2, students need a 3rd year of math. They don't need this 3rd year of math. So, you know.
That's still 9 kids, I mean, right? That's 9 requests. That's, I would think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, when
you know.
we start getting into high school grades, you know.
Yeah.
And the physics and AP physics, will those, let's say, I mean, you have will not run.
Yeah,
under
so those
physics.
2 students. will
Do they
take
get
AP
pushed
physics.
into AP physics? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So the
So,
counselors have spoken to
Oh,
them.
good.
so AP physics is really,
AP.
if you take those 2, it's 8. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Is there an honors physics, or is it just physics and then AP? And I guess I was wondering the same for these other AP courses.
Typically, no. So
So-
AP geography is taken by students most often in the 10th grade, who would normally take a global studies class. Instead, they challenge themselves with a rigor of an AP class in its place. So AP European history is sort of a mix of grade levels, but actually this year a lot of them are seniors. And then we have AP US history, which is an 11th grade class, and that has more folks requesting it than 10, so it's not on this list. We also have AP government. So we actually have 4 AP classes for social studies. And, you know, they're typically in the upper levels. The AP Gov and AP US history are typically well requested. We also have, you know, not listed on here, but we have AP for other things. English classes, we have AP. Lit that comes from Marist with Marist credit or the potential of getting credit by exam. We also have a DCC English class, you know, so we have a lot of upper level classes that are not listed here because they had more.
Yes. Okay, so I was just wondering if there was like an honors track and an AP
Oh, so typically, with honors, what we have done is so honors is something that students in the past were tracked into coming into seventh grade, essentially. So that is for anyone who has had or has seen a child go from seventh grade to high school. They change a great bit, and it's very hard when you are tracking someone out of seventh grade, and then maybe possibly never giving them the option again to get into that honors track. So what we did, I don't know what year, but when I was at the high school, we made a challenge curriculum. So it actually has, it's honors by contract. And what students and parents do is they sign at the beginning of the year understanding that there is a challenge activity for each unit or each text or, you know, whatever standard that they are working on in class. So anyone in the classroom, it could be a co-taught class with students with disabilities that would never have had access to challenge themselves in that way, have access to say, I'm gonna give this a try. I have nothing to lose. And if they score successfully on 85% of that work, then they get the honors distinction on the back end.
Good. What, I mean, I know you made little notes here, but overall, what would your recommendation be? Would it be to keep all of these? I mean, obviously, except for the physics but I think that's phenomenal that they would get to join.
And the counselors have already spoken to us. So those two students are aware that they're being scheduled for AP physics. And typically speaking, at this point, this is more of a notification of how many students have requested it. And then in August, I will come back with final numbers of how many students are actually taking the class. I'm never a fan of cutting out an opportunity for a student to try and challenge themselves with a rigorous course. But if something becomes a pattern year after year, we may have to look at the viability of a program altogether. I recommend that these run at this point, but
I
Yes.
mean, it's just my opinion. I mean, you're looking at 10% or above.
I mean, these are,
right.
to be honest with you, this is very impressive.
Yes,
Because
that's right.
in the past, we have like French 5, we'll have 2 kids in it or 3 kids in it, we'll have, you know, physics, it'll have 3 kids in it, and to me, and again, it's just me, and they're not asking for our approval tonight.
Yeah.
It's August we'll do this, but I'm personally, I'm really enthused by
Right,
this.
me too.
and we didn't even run some of these classes last year because we didn't have enough numbers. So, you know, we've also had conversations with teachers like the value of your, you know, program, say AP geography. You value your program, you need to start talking to the students in your classes and go down and talk to the grade level before you and explain what it is. Because sometimes students are really kind of afraid to take that first AP class because they hear AP and they think it's going to be so hard. But encouraging them to try it, you know. And I'm a big fan of open enrollment for advanced placement. I think if a student wants to take an advanced placement class and the best they can do is a 75, and maybe they would have gotten an 85 in a reasons class, but they really want to challenge themselves in that way and, you know, be around more rigorous conversation and learn just by being a part of that. I'm all about that.
Well, and our parents made it clear that, you know, they wanted more opportunities for advanced placement, more opportunities for college credit. That's one of the, when we had to make the tough decision about discontinuing IB and moving more towards college credit, that's really why we did it. So this is really good. So we'll see this end of August.
End of August, and I'm happy at that time too, just to give a full list of all of the classes that we're running that have potential college credit, whether it's by exam or just because they're associated with the DCC and theirs, just so you can see, and actually Syracuse University now too, but just so you can see, we've expanded our offerings over the past couple of years, and to even have these numbers when we have so many at this point, it's really good for such a small.
No, I think it's
Very good. And at some point, I know I sound like, could you get the CTI numbers for me or for us?
I have one. I will, let me just. come up.
Yeah, well, you can just add them on to this when you come back. I'm that one, I'm not not worried about like killing a, don't
Yeah.
send them to plumbing or something. I'm just personally very curious about what our investment is right now, and then what we might be able to do to help students, that would be a great option. So,
Yeah, off the top of my head, it's like 22 or 24.
really?
We have a very, I have to say, number one, thank you to the board for putting that bill year after year, because coming from the 8th largest high school in New York State outside of the Big Five, I can tell you that we had maybe about that many seats for the entire high school. So the fact that our students, if they want to go, we make it happen for them is awesome. But we typically hover around the low 20s every year.
Well, and with the work that Jason, one of these days I'll have him come back in and give an update on the stuff that he's doing at BOCES to make it more representative of the industries. I think it's phenomenal. And I didn't realize we were at 20. That's great.
Yeah, we always hover right around 20.
Cool. Any other questions for Laura, Caroline, anybody? On this? All right. Future agenda items, Dina, just so you know, we have an ongoing list that Cheryl will send you. You can go through when you need to fall asleep. But it's basically all the stuff, like every February we have to do this, every March we have to do this. But also, when we say, we want you to come back in 2 meetings and do this, we put them on this list. And if there's something that you're, interested, like you think we really need to put some focus on something, we can add them to this list, and then Cheryl will bug the heck out of us about actually doing it. So that's what this agenda item is.
Okay, thank you. We have 6, 6 seniors and 6.
Wow, that's amazing. That makes me happy. All right. So I don't think we have nothing specific. The next agenda item is basically, so let's say next meeting, we've said to Laura, hey, we want to see, we want Steve to come in and tell us about, why he's wearing weird sneakers or something, whatever the subject is. And then well, I'm not sure what, but when we use this agenda item to say, when you come in next week, what I really want to see from the board standpoint is this, this, and this. So they don't come in thinking we want to see, a color palette and we want to see the financials. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next up is executive session. Before I ask for a motion to go into executive session, we may return, even though the agenda does not say so. Does not have anything right now. Based on the discussions that we have in executive session, we may take actions when we come back to public session. Anyway, do I have a motion to go to executive session? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any against? 10 minutes? What's that?